Welcome to All Access, where we meet at the intersection of healthcare and generic and biosimilar medications. Brought to you by the Association for Accessible Medicines, representing the generics and biosimilars industry. Our guest today is Vinita Gupta, Chief Executive Officer of Lupin Limited and Chair of Lupin Inc. and its subsidiary, Lupin Pharmaceuticals. Vinita set up Lupin Pharmaceutical in the U.S. and Europe, and was instrumental in formulating and executing strategies that helped Lupin emerge as a global pharmaceutical leader. Among her many accomplishments, Vinita founded, led, and established Lupin's largest region right here in the United States. Vinita earned her bachelor's degree in pharmacy from the University of Mumbai and an MBA from Kellogg in Chicago. Vinita's father, Deshbandhu Gupta, founded Lupin in 1968. And Vinita joined the company in 1993 and has been serving as the CEO since 2013. So with that background, Vinita, welcome to All Access.
My pleasure. I'm really glad to be here, Dan, and look forward to sharing my perspective.
Thank you. So I gave a little bit of the background, but it's kind of a fascinating family story. So perhaps we could start there. Tell us a little bit about the very early days, the beginnings of Lupin.
Sure. Like you mentioned, Dan, the company started in 1968. So around 53 years ago, actually, last week was our anniversary of a foundation day. So it's our 54th year in business. So we call my father, founder, Deshbandhu Gupta, DBG in the company. He's known industry-wide as DBG. And he started the company with a very strong purpose of serving a area of high unmet need. At that point in time, tuberculosis was the largest killing disease in India. Infectious diseases was a big problem. It's amazing, again, today, infectious diseases is a big problem with COVID. But at that point in time, there were no real strong companies focused on tuberculosis. And he saw an opportunity to build capabilities in Lupin to serve the cause of TB. Those were the humble beginnings. I say humble because the company was started with what is now $3,000, 5,000 rupees. At that point in time, borrowed from my mom. So my mom was a very astute investor. And he used that to buy the Lupin license. The name Lupin came with the pharma license that gave him the opportunity of setting up the organization. From that early start, and building capabilities to serve the cause of tuberculosis, the company got into manufacturing of active ingredients, manufacturing of finished products, manufacturing pretty complex active ingredients like fermentation products. One of our TB drugs, tuberculosis is a multi-drug regimen. One of our drugs is a fermentation drug. Another drug is a synthetic product. And the company really established capabilities in developing APIs, developing finished products on that focus area of tuberculosis. In a matter of the first 10 years of the company's evolution, we established a very dominant position, first in India and then world over through all our efforts with government organizations, the WHO, as well as NGOs that serve the cause of tuberculosis, established a significant presence around the world. Even today, Lupin is the leading player in the world in tuberculosis. So I'll be very, very proud of continuing that legacy after all the years. From the TB drugs, we went into broader spectrum anti-infectives. Again, infection being a big problem in India. Got into cephalosporins and macrolide products that, again, served a big need in India. That gave us a launch pad of getting Lupin outside of India because there was tremendous opportunity with the anti-infectives outside of India, in particular in the U.S., Europe, and Japan.
Well, it's really fascinating how a focus on one area, obviously a critical area, you said the leading cause of mortality in India at that time, but how that focus on TB has expanded across so many therapeutic areas now, and the company has grown. And you mentioned your mother being an early financer or the early angel investor, if you will.
That's right.
But your brother is also involved still in India, correct?
Yeah, Neelish is in India. He's our managing director. He joined the company 5 years after I did. Like me, he also first pursued a technical degree, got a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and then got his MBA from the Wharton Business School. Worked for a short time at that time HMR before Aventis, and until I attracted him to Lupin, said you have to join the right cause, of affordable medicines.
Yes. So obviously, your parents played a big role in not just the standing up of Lupin, but your life and your career. So, any kind of words of wisdom that you carry with you to this day?
Well, both my parents have had such a major impact on me. My father was my inspiration to join the company. In the early days of starting Lupin, he would use us as a sounding board at home. Dining table conversations were about Lupin. There was a point in time when my mom said that, can't we just have a conversation about regular day to day as opposed to business? And there was pin drop silence for a week on the dining table. So
It didn't go over
she had
so
to
well.
give up that objective.
Right. Nice try, Mom, but no.
Exactly. But, he was just always very passionate about the business, was always talking about the next major move of the business. And that got me hooked very early in it. I was 14 when he took me to the first meeting. It was a negotiation with Marion Merrill Dow in Switzerland in Zurich. And I had the opportunity to be an observer and, saw him conduct the business. What I learned the most from him is one, the cause we serve. I mean, affordable medicines, the kind of difference that we can make through the pharmaceutical industry is just unparalleled. And I saw that in how he built the organization. The second was just thinking big. He always dreamt big. When we were little, he was talking about the $1 billion plan. When we were on the way to the billion, he was talking about the $5 billion plan. So thinking big, dreaming big. And then along with that dream and the vision, really building the strategy, building the plan, which is a big part of, putting the pillars around the dream, to make it happen. And at the end of the day, binding everybody, making it inclusive, getting everyone excited about the purpose so that they feel like going above and beyond to build an organization. That's what he did. That's how he conducted himself. That's how he conducted his business. And I was very fortunate to learn from him. The other great thing I learned very early from him is that he really wanted Lupin to be an organization where family work like professionals and earn their right, and professionals feel like family, So really connecting the broader professional team into part of the Lupin family, making them feel like part of the Lupin family, which again got them to go above and beyond the organization. So you have folks in the organization that have been here for 30 years, or 35 years, and started right at the shop floor level, but have risen to levels of this, presidents of different business units in our organization or different functions. So really very, very, very strong culture that he built. Likewise, from my mom, she is a very strong sounding board. As much as I learned how to think big from my father, she kept us very grounded. And, that really helped us build resilience, because the going is not always good. Our industry is full of challenges. When it gets challenging, it's the combination of that long-term vision and the resilience that comes in very handy to carry you through the period and still stay focused on your mission.
It's a great combination, which you just described there. And one of the things that you said there, Vinita, that really resonated with me is this, the commitment to the mission, to what our industry does, delivering access to affordable medications to patients. But as any enterprise grows, whether it's a company, a family-run company, or an association like we have here at AAM, as any enterprise grows, it becomes harder and harder to maintain the founding philosophy, the foundations that it was built upon, because you're now operating around the world in all of these different markets with different pressures. What has it taken to retain kind of the original entrepreneurial spirit of the company as you have grown into a global force?
So the great thing for us is it's really built into our DNA. Entrepreneurship is something that was very important to my father, to really find opportunities that can differentiate the organization, seize them, even if they're different from what you plan to do, and make a difference through opportunities. And likewise, I learned the same thing from him and value it. So it's really leading by example, really acknowledging entrepreneurship, emphasizing to the team that you want to continue to be very nimble. Our industry is the affordable medicine industry, generic industry is all about being nimble and agile. You have to look at the changes in the marketplace. You have to look at shortage of the drug supply, and see how you can position yourself to be able to meet that need. So it's entrepreneurship is kind of built into our organization, into our DNA. And the way we tend to take a lot of our great values, keep them alive, is by telling the stories over and over again. I mentioned our foundation day last week. Again, we told the story about how Lupin was founded and what it took to really get it from the start in 1968 to where it is today. We have instituted a number of forums, for example, the Spirit of Lupin Awards, which are named after a founder, after DBG. So they're called DBG Spirit of Lupin Awards. And they basically recognize people that epitomize our 6 values as an organization. And we've made that very engaging process throughout the organization globally. So we have regional juries that come together, and then a global jury that picks 6 winners out of all our 20,000 employees around the world. So the stories of people and how those stories relate to our culture are showcased in front of all of our 20,000 employees around the world. That to us, that is the way you keep it going. That is the way you recognize your values, not just as something that is written on a white paper or a board, but how are people living it, and make it real for them today.
I'd like to give our listeners and our viewers just a little bit of background on the growth that we've been talking about. So since beginning your U.S. operations in 2003, Lupin has received over 250 FDA approvals, launched nearly 200 products. We currently have a robust generic pipeline that includes several first-to-file opportunities. But additionally, Lupin has a branded specialty business that you started 20 years ago. And more recently have added complex injectables and biosimilars to your development program. So all of this has put Lupin on the leading edge of this, really what's now, I guess, would be considered a hybrid generic company, hybrid specialty generic. How critical is this strategy, and is this the go forward strategy for Lupin, getting into more complex arenas like biosimilars and injectables?
So at the broadest level, our strategy is to really have a very firm foot in affordable medicines, to make a difference through affordable medicines, but also to innovate, especially in areas of unmet need where the company can make a difference. So the focus on both generics as well as specialty or innovative products. On the generic side of the business, we started with oral solid dosage forms, but as the industry has evolved, as the market has evolved, the need today is to be able to really bring generic versions, affordable medicines, versions of the complex generics, whether it is inhalation products, whether it's devices like the women's health devices, or biosimilars, which takes very specific expertise on the biological front, or complex injectables, whether it's depot injectables, peptides, and the like. So our focus on the generic front, or under the umbrella of affordable medicine, is very much to be able to continue to serve the need of oral solids. We have a very strong foundation there, and we continue to invest into making new drugs, oral solid drugs available, but more and more invest into these new areas where you need to bring affordable drugs to market. So, for example, this past year, we got approval for our first metered dose inhaler for albuterol. And that was 5-year investment of building expertise, building capabilities, both in the U.S. as well in India, to be able to bring, an effective generic version to that product. We were very pleased to be able to get that to the market. Likewise, we've been investing into biosimilars. I really see the biosimilars as a big part of the future of the generic industry. I mean, with more and more number of drugs that are getting approved are biologics, there's a need for the generic industry to stay relevant long term. You have to be in biologics. Lupin identified that need 15 years ago and decided to invest into building capabilities for biologics, and now have really evolved that into a very attractive portfolio that we have developed for U.S., Europe, Japan. We've already brought products into the market in Japan and Europe, and have our first product filed in the U.S. just very recently, and I'm looking forward to that evolution. And likewise on complex injectables and other platforms. So that is on the generic front. On the innovation front, innovation being second leg of our strategy, Lupin has invested into specialty products. We have a women's health focus in the U.S. and have an innovative product that we licensed in, we acquired actually, and put a sales force together and promote it to OBGYNs. In Europe, we have a neurology product, orphan drug, that we brought to market and into multiple countries, and are looking to bring it into the U.S. market. In Canada, we have a GI product that we licensed from Valiant, now Bausch. So we have the specialty part of our business. And the last, I would say, is innovation. Within Lupin in our R&D, there's a percentage of our R&D that is invested into drug discovery. And the company has been successful in bringing oncology molecules from the lab to the clinic. And we have 2 molecules that we license to big pharma companies, and 5 others in the pipeline now that we're looking to find the best way to bring them forward to meet that large unmet need in oncology.
It's interesting to hear you say you have biosimilars approved ex-US and are waiting in the US. And that's one of our, one of the issues, as you know, that we work on every day is to accelerate the approval of biosimilars in this country. And it's somewhat frustrating that we're behind the rest of the world on that score. But so what are the challenges, the biggest challenges that you see facing the industry right now? And then what are some of the biggest opportunities for the industry and Lupin specifically?
I really see the foundation of generics as a major opportunity for Lupin long term, because there's going to be more and more of a need for affordable medicines. But the evolution into complex generics, to be able to grow that business effectively, because when you look at the products going off patent the next 5 years, the next 10 years, more and more of them are devices, more and more of them are biologics. So that evolution is certainly one. And I think it's both sides of the coin. The challenges that we have in trying to bring them to market are really the opportunity as well. When you're successful in bringing them to market, it's going to be great for the organization as well as for patients. But in terms of specific challenges, I'd say that when we look at our base business, that in the last few years has been under pricing pressure. And then we look at the investment that is needed to be able to open the doors to complex generic products. It's significant. It's quite a balance, to be able to manage your P&L and meet investor expectations, as well as the business expectations to bring more affordable products to market. So I'd say that is a balance that we manage on a continuous basis, and sometimes we forego opportunities. If we have a year where we have not too many new product launches, we say, okay, we're going to do this next year. But we try to do our best to be able to cover all the material opportunities that we believe Lupin can make a real difference through. I'd say for the industry, broader than just even the generic industry, one of the major challenges right now is the talent and the talent retention. Just given how hot our industry has been through the last, through COVID in particular, our industry has really risen to, was the beacon of hope. And when you look at the biotech industry, you look at the vaccine manufacturers, you look at all of the capital that has gone into that side of our industry, it has put pressure on our talent. Now, thankfully, I mean, we as a company have built a very strong culture in the organization to connect our talent with the organization. But that's a big challenge that I hear from my other CEO friends in the industry as well.
It's interesting to hear, the challenges that you have getting good people and holding on to them in this environment. You also mentioned the pandemic, and the pandemic put a spotlight really on making sure that we didn't have shortages of critical drugs and that we had a resilient supply chain. But you're representative of our industry kind of globally.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this issue, on supply chain and making sure that we have a robust and resilient supply chain?
So I think definitely the need to really build self-reliance to a certain extent in the U.S. For essential medicines. I can completely relate to it. Living here and, having gone through that period when the governments locked down all the borders to, export of drugs. At the same time, I think that to really have a secure and a sustainable supply chain, you need to really take a look at the strengths and the weaknesses that local manufacturing presents. When we look at our operations, and we certainly, as we looked at this challenge, we said that to the extent that there are essential medicines that are needed to be manufactured in the US, we certainly want to participate in it. And we will expand our manufacturing footprint in the US, in New Jersey or in Florida, to be able to make that happen and contribute to that cause. At the same time, when I look at a cost of manufacturing in the US versus India, even for automated, parts of our products and supply chains, I find a material difference. So to the extent that cost continues to be an important driver for our business, I think one will have to come up with additional incentives or offset or something to really make local manufacturing in the US viable. Yeah. I also think there is a way to really leverage the capabilities in the US and the capabilities in India, just like we do, and pick in, a certain number of products or certain steps of products that you want to manufacture locally, but have a very strong bipartite, trade agreement with long-term committed partners.
And one of those partners needs to be the government, right? So if we're really going to increase the footprint here in the United States upon an already impressive footprint of generic manufacturers, the government has to be a strong partner with us. And you mentioned incentives. So we're doing a lot of work at AAM on developing policy proposals on what those incentives could be all along the way to incent more domestic manufacturing, and also on the API side, not just on the finished dose. Last week, or very recently, we had a conversation, and we were talking about the reputation of the industry. And I was wondering, if I asked you, if you had a magic wand, right? What would you want patients, healthcare providers, professionals, government leaders? What would you want their perception to be about our industry? What would you want them to know about us and understand and appreciate that perhaps they're not fully getting now, because all you read in the papers is drug prices are too high, and I think we just get rolled up into that category. But if you had this magic wand, what would you want them to know?
I would really want them to understand that we are the solution to the problem. It's when you look at drug spend, we are the true solution. And it's we do a lot of work. The AAM, all our colleagues there do a lot of good work in trying to spread that message. But the number of times I come across people, from all walks of life, whether it's physicians or or the CEOs, industry leaders, the number of times I get the question on why is your generic drugs so highly priced? It would be great for us if what we bring as an industry was more broadly known. The kind of savings that our industry brings to healthcare spend, $300+ billion, significant increase year after year. Yeah. I think it would be great for people to know that in general. Yeah. I also think that some amount of appreciation of what we do as an industry. I mean, a lot of times we get labeled as copycats, and people don't realize the kind of investment and effort and expertise that we bring to bear to be able to bring affordable medicines to market. But, when you look at our R&D spend, roughly 10% of our revenues, we spend around $250 million each year, an increasing amount every year with our growth in bringing affordable medicines to market. And that is to invest into capabilities, to invest into platforms, to invest into products, to invest into, not even talking about the manufacturing investment. But it would be wonderful to be able to somehow convey what kind of effort and investment goes into bringing these affordable medicines to market.
I got one last question for you, Vinita. What would you tell a young woman today coming up who might be considering a career in our business?
So I can tell anyone who wants to go into pharmacy, I'm a pharmacist by training, and the opportunities that our industry presents is tremendous. The first thing I say to anyone who wants to be part of our industry is there are very few industries that let you do so much good while you are building value for yourself and for shareholders and all the stakeholders for the organization. Very, very few industries that give you that opportunity. So, that in itself was a big driver for me. It was a big driver for my family to get into this business. And, for anyone who is looking at our industry, you want to look at it long term, look at the kind of difference we make, and let that be the purpose. And if that is a purpose, you can have a very, very long, enriching career in our industry, whether it's through pharmacy into technical areas or on the commercial side of the business.
Great advice. Thank you so very much, Vinita Gupta, CEO of Lupin Pharmaceuticals. Thank you for sharing your insights with us and for joining us on All Access.